I'm curious if you consider Satanism a religion. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously a rebellion religion against the biblical God, but it is. I know where you're going with this because I've thought so many times about this. I mean, I've even prayed. I'm like, God, what is the answer here? And I think that the founders were on the right track, actually. For a while, I thought, well, no, God would be upset that we have all these. No, I, if he was, he would have lifted protection from America a long time ago. I don't think that it's not a problem to have your country have people practice their own faiths, even if it's this. I mean, obviously, if they're sacrificing humans and baby, then that's against, something has to be done about that. But otherwise, I think it's one of those areas where it's like, no, it was shown in history that, you don't want to force Christianity on people. It doesn't work. So, you just, and yet I think the founders realized they don't want to be dictators either. So if you say, no, you have to be Christian, then you're a dictator. So I know it's a slippery slope. I think where God does expect us to be weary of, though, is that if people want to go into a government position, like it's fine for people, anybody of any faith, to go into a government position as if they're not taking an oath. I know that it talks in the Bible about not taking pledges and oaths, that kind of stuff. I know, but again, the covenant is where the values started. Otherwise, it's very obvious we shouldn't have been protected. We're a small country. We've only been around 250 years, 350 years. I forget all the time, something like that. Compared to China, compared to Russia, we are like the tiniest dot. And they've been around longer, and yet we've been the superpower. That's not because of our technology or because of any other reason but God. God has raised us up. So, and there's an obvious reason. It's a clearly common sense reason. It's because America has remained, the dominancy has been Christian. We've had a lot of religions that come in with the hope to try to turn that, because that wicked one knows that if it can get a country to start practicing other faiths and if they get enough people in the country, God will lift protection. He'll be done. Because you can look at other countries and see how that's happened. You lose more freedoms. It's very obvious. It's so very obvious, proving the Bible. So if somebody that practices another faith wants to get into a government position, that's fine, but not if they have to take an oath. Because then once they take an oath to a bunch of gods that wasn't what our founding started on, then to me it's disrespectful, because you're taking an allegiance to other gods. And so that's the kind of stuff I think we're supposed to be aware of. As far as religions that obviously are in total opposition to the biblical God, clearly Satanism is. That's one of those areas where I think God just wants you to do what you're supposed to do, in his eyes, and he will avenge that himself. Unless they're doing things illegal, obviously. In which case, whether they're religion or not, it has to be dealt with. But I do think that God wanted, since because even though we've dropped off in Christianity, I mean, now we're rising again, but even dropping off, we still have not fallen below to where any other country is more Christian than America. So that's the only reason God has continued to protect us, is because of that status, no matter what anybody says. That's why the communists hate it. That's why the communists hate America. And people like me saying, no, our values started with that covenant. The Pilgrims and the Puritans, in the beginning, they had problems because they saw the Catholics as that the Catholics had a lot of, witchcraft kind of stuff going on. And some places I've read where in order for people to convert, you kind of had to mix it with that's their occult stuff they were doing, which to help them move over to the Christian side. I don't know, but so that's the Puritans and the Pilgrims did not like it when the Catholicism started rolling in. I don't think they disliked it like they hated. It's just it scared them, and I could see where it would, because that's what they were trying to leave. Then by the time 1776 came around, I think that the 1776 founders, regardless of what people want to say about them being Freemasons and stuff, look, nobody could have written the Declaration of Independence without God's help. It's like scripture when you read that. So God was leading them regardless of, what they believed. There was some leading going on with some of them. God had a purpose, and it's because the only place in the Bible where America is mentioned is in Revelations to the Church of Philadelphia. Now, all the experts will tell you, no, that was talking about the Philadelphia church in Asia Minor. Well, no, it couldn't have been, because that church fell. I'm not saying they weren't strong in their faith, because that letter to the Church of Philadelphia is God saying, I'm going to protect you from tribulation. I'm going to be your guardian because you've done good in my eyes. Well, that church fell. So even though everybody has attributed it to that, the fact is William Penn, who was a founder, he named Philadelphia here in America based on that church. So that letter is to America. That should be obvious, because God's protected America, which is exactly what that letter to the Church of Philadelphia in Revelation says. That I'm going to protect you. Why? Because you've remained loyal to my word. And we've remained the most Christian nation in the world. So that's why God protects us. But as far as this and other stuff, I think that it's just it can, because God works in mysterious ways, and people convert, not being forced to convert, because it shows in history that doesn't work. And if you end up saying everybody has to be Christian, then you become no different than the rest of the dictators in the world. So I think that God always would have been fine with people being in the same land and practicing other faiths. But like in the Old Testament, they just kept getting caught into the taking on that culture, and of course that culture was literally sacrificing babies, to Baal. So and then they were damned. America hasn't done that. America's literally, even with all these other faiths, has remained still dominantly Christian. And so I think that God is fine with that part, even if you have your Satan religions, because he'll deal with that one day. But I think we should not let anybody, in my opinion, if they're going to take a position in government, and they are taking it because they respect the values of America, then they need to respect the values of America's covenant with God, and that covenant is where it started with the Pilgrims. That's the reason that's the reason why all the media and all these bad actors, they don't want to talk about that. That's where it began. So that covenant is very important to be, mindful of, and not. So when you see, to me, it's like, so when you take an oath and you're doing it on a Bible other than the biblical God, then how can you respect the values of America? Because if you respect the values of America, you don't have to be Christian, but you should at least recognize that if you love the values of America, that's where it started. You don't have to believe in the Bible, but you shouldn't be allowed to take a position where you have to take an oath. Because then if you're taking it to other gods, then you're not doing it because you love America. You're doing it for other reasons. And when it comes to Kash Patel, there seems to be some people that seem to believe that India founded America first. This all goes back to the Indians. Yeah, no. There were some Indians here. They didn't own all of the land. It started with the biblical God.